fingers are all white in there. You better get your white one. And if you've got a coat on before you put your lamp and battery on, then just in case any acid leaks out the battery, then we'll damage it. Boy, cool.
Get my magnet.
Sometimes white pieces are smaller.
I'll put it all over my coat, I think, because I've got my...
Okay. Yeah, I thought about taking a leg. All right, Morris.
I'm done, John.
Are you?
All done. Come on, John, down.
Look, I already have one telling off today. I don't want any more hassle from anybody.
Are you Westward or BBC?
Best one I can get. It's all right, I'll let you. Go on. You add atmosphere.
Add atmosphere. Oh dear.
For something.
I'm too sure what sort of atmosphere. Hang on a second. Okay, all aboard. Anybody walking in wrong side yet? No. Never made any allowances for this ball, were they?
Who tells me that means you're going to still be separate? This is going to get cosy, isn't it?
You don't have to be embarrassed about anything.
Two more here to get in. There's a ladder there. Somebody going upstairs.
Keep on coming.
Two more yet. Squash it.
I like this.
Are you in? I know we've not been introduced, but is this a good time?
That better? Yeah. Get some lights on.
At least one thing being this packed tight, if that wire breaks, you know, we'll not be thrown about much, will we?
Well, no.
Put that together in one.
In theory, if it does break, that spring there
Bounces you back up?
draws two jaws and clamps them onto the runners.
Oh, yeah. In theory, you said?
That's in theory. Yeah.
Nobody tried it yet?
It's never broken yet.
Well, there's not much
So we don't know if the safety system works then? Right. Just trying to keep things in perspective.
Keep everybody cheerful. Looks a bit seized up, I must admit. I think it does.
Well, you know what about theories? By theory, the bumblebee can't fly, can it?
That's right.
What sort of rate are we dropping at then?
Normally it would be 25 feet per second.
Cool.
But because nobody's been cheeky to the winder driver yet for the day, he's taking it nice and quiet.
He's going slow.
We want to ring him up later before we come up. If we roll some abuse at him, find out.
Stop with a jerk at the top.
Is this victory shaft?
Next victory shaft, yeah.
Do you ever use the other one at the other end?
Skip shaft. What, Levant skip shaft? Yeah. Well, the cage up the Levant skip shaft for about 6 years. They were considering it, because it would be an escape route for anybody that got stuck in the ground, but I think it would need so much work now.
You can feel the cable bouncing now, can't you, as it stretches?
Yeah. It's with a freight bit
Really
car,
is
isn't
a
it?
popping,
Yeah. What was that ping? The winding man's very considerate, isn't he?
Yes, he's doing a nice job.
Must have got marks.
Yeah. Several marks up there, there's 7 metres, and then when you actually come within
Daylight.
5 or 10 feet of the station, there's a pink mark on the drum then, so he knows exactly within inches.
No, get out.
Right, this is 15 level. Fixture shaft, vertical shaft, all the timber set in, even the runners, the timber runners, no steel work in the shaft at all. 2 compartments, cages, and the other compartment is the pipeline for the water pumping, compressed air column, and the water pipe that feeds the machines on the grade, and a ladder way to walk up. That's the way we go up later. Feeling fit?
Keep fit.
No, that's all right. That's just in case of emergencies. There's always a ladder way to surface.
Down, are we?
This is 15 level. If we work on an average of 100 foot per level, it'll give you an idea. Obviously, it's a little bit up and down because some of the levels vary a little bit, but that gives you an idea. So you're nice enough, 1,500 feet near it.
How much further does it go?
This shaft doesn't go a lot further. It only goes down to what would be a 16 level, but the loading boxes where the skips load is just between this level and what will be the 16 level. So it has to go down just deep enough for the ore that comes back on this level to go down an ore pass and into the bins that load into the skips. When the cages are taken off, the skips are on then. And they load from just below this station to hoist the ore. We'll have a look in the pump station in a minute and show you what use for that can be. Granite, that when you mine it out, it stays there. You don't have to support it. There's nothing that supports it. Convenient, in fact, it supports lots of other things, like some pipelines all rock bolted to the roof. These are the Geevor's main compensation on the These are the 2 freshwater pumps, and those 2 pumps over there, the Arnold pumps, dealt with the salt water. And the salt water problem came when they went towards the bank for better reserves, and they opened up the old Levant working. But when they got into them, they were full of salt water. So the sea had broken in while the mine had been closed. People tend to think there was some sort of disaster at Levant and the sea broke, and it didn't. It was discovered that when the mine was to be dewatered, the sea had broken in then. So they breached the hole out in just off the cliffs by putting the dye in the mine and watching where it came out offshore. They breached the hole, but it still leaks quite badly to the tune of about 150,000 gallons a day, which is why those 2 pumps are holding solely for salt water. The salt water comes in at the lower end of the is pumped up from 90 up to a sun just around the corner. And then from here it's pumped up to adit level and it runs back out to sea again. These freshwater pumps pump to another pump station on 10, and that water then from 10 is pumped to surface to work the mill, because we need a lot of water when the mill is working to wash the tails. So these were pumped in 2 stages, up to 10 and then up to surface to be used again. Like I said, the beauty is no supports. Unlike collieries and places like that, they have to be supported. All soft rock mines supported. Hard rock is, once you've mined it out, that's where it stays. The only places that are lit like this are the likes of the stations, this pump chamber and the incline. Once you get away from those areas, it's all down to your cap lamps then. nosy at this for a minute, it'll give you an idea in a minute of when you go up and see different loads that have been worked, the way that they have been worked. By the way, that was the shaft we've come down, Victory shaft. And the red line there marks another shaft alongside it, which is the ore pass. So that each level dumps into that ore pass, and eventually it goes then just down below 15 level station, and there are the bins where it's loaded into the skips to go to the surface. So that ore pass connects all the levels, and all the ore goes down one passageway. That's where the decline starts from just above 15 station. That's the angle of the loads, unlike a lot of collieries which loads are horizontal. Ours are nearly vertical. Some of them pitch a little bit more, but that's about the angle of them. And you can see, like every 100 foot, we have a level, 8 foot by 6 foot level, which are these. So this on its side looks like that. And the cementing has to be taken out between the two levels. And the way to do that is by leaving support pillars just to keep these workings independent from the track, so that you always have a clear tunnel there and there to work on. And the mining operations then are independent. So the two stopers, drillers working in pairs, stopers they call them, would start perhaps here and put up maybe 3 rise rounds up into the solid ground and connect them over the top with an intermediate level. This will have started here. This is as they've worked maybe 2 or 3 months work there. But they will have started very small, and gradually each day they will put 1 rise round up and work each side of it, and gradually each day they'll get higher and higher and longer. 1 man working each side until eventually they get full height to within 12 foot of the next level. And then they'll put an access rise through to give them access, not only access to the next level, to save. Otherwise everything's got to be humped from way down here, way up over the top. They call them shrink stopes and back stopes because when the ground is broken it occupies more space than what it would do in the solid. So gradually over the days the level of this broken ore, which they stand on to drill, will get a bit too much. So they have to bring trammers in at the bottom under wherever necessary and shrink the ore down to give them space to work. Always drilling into the roof in a form of steps. After that, those holes there, after they're blasted, will leave a different step. So the stope gradually moves that way in stages. 2 stopers then each side. All the gear has to be moved each evening because of the blasting and then re-rigged in the following morning. The developers will carry the heading on as long as there are values, and as soon as the values are finished then the stopers will steepen the grade of this slant here to take out most of the values then and finish it more or less in a vertical shape there. As soon as they've gone past this, they only leave the ore there for the time being to work on, otherwise they'd be working in vast open spaces. But as soon as they've gone past here, the ore can be trammed out then by the trammers and taken back to the ore passes. The same applies at the bottom. This will be an empty gunnis here. There you can see the support pillars. They don't put the rises quite as close at the top, there's no need. It's just 1 every 40 foot, 40, 60 foot perhaps for access, that's all. But these down the bottom need to be quite close together because of the need to shrink stuff in the stope to give them space to work. Right? That's the theory of it.
What size are the drill to?
These drill holes here are normally 6 foot. Some of them used 8 foot drills, and they found 8 foot was a better bench, it broke more ground. Of course all stopers were paid, well all drillers were paid on footage. In this case it would be per square foot, not cubic foot, but per square foot of ground broken. That's what they were paid on. And they had to buy their own explosives as well. So at one stage they're almost like a subcontractor to the mine. In fact, years ago they used to have to buy their own helmets, their own lamps, their own boots, their own picks, shovels, everything. They had their own explosives and detonators. And at the end of the month they'd be measured up, and out of their money they would have to pay back whatever equipment they used. And they used to get paid for 3 weeks. They used to have what we call a subsistence. And on the 4th week they'd have to pay that back out of their bonus as well. So they had to do quite well, otherwise they could end up in debt. And years ago there was a good many men apparently that worked for a month for 6 months because they'd used so much explosives and they hadn't done well enough that they didn't make any wages. So all 8 foot drills or 6 foot drills, benches, and they keep the benches as even as they can so that it keeps the slope there as even as possible, because when you consider that that's 100 foot between there and there, you're talking about 300, possibly 300 foot in length, and it's very awkward climbing up and down because you're walking on broken ore in quite a confined space, and you have machines, drills to take up and down every day. Explosives are heavy. There's an awful lot of fetching and carrying, so they try and keep them as level as they can to keep that gradient easy enough to walk up and down or climb up and down. But basically about 25 holes a shift each man, and they would use then a case of powder each, 50 pounds of explosive each, every day. They used to fire by safety fuses, which was a bit haphazard, well, right up until about 5 years ago, I suppose. And these holes would be charged up with 3-minute fuses in each, and the bottom stoper's holes would be charged the same. And the man would have to start from the top with what looked like a magic wand. They call it a cheeser, made by Brooks Fireworks Company. Gave off a very bright green, intense flame. And he would light the fuses one by one. Of course, these holes wouldn't just be one hole, they'd be in pairs of holes to give him the width. So he would have to, there'd be 6 holes on that bench, 6 there, and as he's lighting them, making his way down, and he'd light his partner's holes. By the time he got to the bottom holes lighting, the first ones were about ready to go off. So he had to make his way down that ladder as quick as he could to get down into the level where he was safe enough for them to go off. Latterly, of course, they went all to electric half-second delay detonators, so that they were all charged up, and he'd put his number 1 in the first hole, number 2 in the second hole, so that he knew exactly what time they were all going to go off, and then they'd be fired from a safe point way back here somewhere by a blasting cable and an exploder. But it all used to be safety fuses initially. So a lot of running, a lot of shouting, and a lot of hats being there. Where the 2 drillers that are developing the level would work. There'd be 2 machines set up here, not 1. And they'd have to come in the morning, and of course the blast from the night before would leave them with a level full of broken ore, which had to be mucked out with the rocker shovels. I don't know if you've seen one up opposite the ticket office up there, half painted with a little scoop on the front. It loads the ore over itself and into the wagon behind. Probably between 25 and 30 tons to muck out before you get to the face like this. Then he rig up his 2 machines. This one's a Holman's machine, 900 machine, this one. That's the drilling unit, and this piece is the hydraulic leg, all worked on compressed air, that forces the machine to stop it bouncing out of the hole. He drilled probably an 8-foot round. It depended on what time he had left after he laid his track and his pipes and he mucked out, but normally they averaged about an 8-foot round. And his one of them would drill what we call the cut kneesers, and the other one would drill the outer holes. And they can't just drill willy-nilly anywhere, they have to drill to a pattern, because the rock is so hard and dense that if you just drilled a hole in it and fill it with explosives, it wouldn't do anything, it would just blow out. So they've got to start off by making a small hole, usually in the centre of the face. And they do that by cheating a little bit these days. They never used to have these big holes. But they have to start off with a pattern of holes so that if he fires this hole that this drill is in, it'll break into these 2 side larger holes here, and that'll give him a slot. What he'll do initially is drill 3 holes this side, there, and then he'll use this reamer bit, which takes quite a long time to drill, but he'll ream out these 2 holes because that will follow the initial 1.25" hole. So that'll give him a head start. So he can make that slot with his first blast with his number 0 deck, which goes off instantly in there. Then his next one, number 1 and number 2, he can put in those 2 holes there, which will break then like a diamond shape. And then his 4 easers can be timed next. So all of a sudden he's got 8 foot in, he's got a little square that now he can start to put more ground on his side holes then. And gradually he can make the hole bigger until he's got his full size face, his full level there, 8 foot by 6 foot. But it has to be done right, because if that cut and easers doesn't break, nothing else will break. And of course that's cost him his day's wages then. Plus he's had to pay for his powder, so he's out of pocket well and truly. So it was important that he got that bit right, if nothing else. He had to get that right. And of course he had to finish in a day, because if he didn't finish and he didn't fire, the next day he had 5 minutes work to finish off and he had nothing to do. And they all had a set blasting time, because other men working within the mine would be dependent on him firing at a specific time, otherwise they'd be caught in his smoke if he fired too early, or he'd be caught in somebody else's smoke if he fired too late, because the smoke from explosives is very dense and you can't see your hand in front of your face. So it was important that they stuck to their firing time, and it was very rigid. If they didn't finish for that firing time, they had to leave it and walk out. So it was important that they got it done. That's why they decided, usually by the time they'd locked out, they'd look at their watch and decide whether to go for an 8 foot or 10 foot. It looks here as though they've gone for, if you see the drill hole there. So it looks, I would think that's probably an 8 foot round. So they've gone for an 8 foot round on this last round that they did here. It just followed a little stringer in here. You're going to just see it on the face there. Obviously it came to nothing, so they abandoned it. They thought they may have gone to a better load, but they didn't. So that's as far as they drove this little aim. And that's the way they've always done it. This crosscut was driven by 2 chaps called Jimmy Sweeney and Victor Wheeler. I don't know if our lad back there knows Jimmy Sweeney or not. He's a local lad. And when they did this, a lot of mining people came here and they said that this was the finest crosscut in Europe, driven by 2 men with handheld machines, primitive machines, because of its shape and it was so straight for so far, they didn't deviate at all. It's very difficult when you're developing to know whether or not you're going straight, and the surveyors didn't come in that often. So it was up to the machine men to keep as straight as they could. And at the time, that's when this was done, they reckoned this was the finest little crosscut in Europe for its size, for being done with just handheld machines. One of the stopes has been worked out, and the trammers have been and they've emptied it. And you can see now, to give you an idea of the width of the stope that they had to work to get the load out from here. They'll work from the bottom, from here to the bottom. So your lights will now shine just down on top of the support pillars on 16 level.
Because we're on 15, aren't we?
Yeah.
So that's 16 down.
You can just see the support pillars of 16 level. You can see some stuff still left on them down there in some places, I think, if your lights are good.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the width that they worked in, although the load isn't quite as wide as that. There's the load there, it's about the width of the load there. They have to take out a certain amount of granite, otherwise you never get in there to work, it would be too narrow. Some of the old-fashioned miners used to take out just the load, however they got in there, I should never know. But we always took out just a little bit more. When you had your legs slapped if you took out a little bit too much, because the more granite you take out, you're diluting the tin, so the grade would drop. So you had to be careful not to take too much granite, and just take enough so you could get in there to work. And that was about the width that it ended up. Doesn't stay there, we call that a gunnis now once it's empty, but that should stay there now for years without collapsing, without moving. The only bits that ever come off are the odd shales and bits of rock now and then that might peel away. But basically that'll stay there for a good many years. Again, that's the difference between a colliery and a tin mine with hard rock and soft rock. Whereas in the collieries, they collapse their ground behind them because it won't support itself. Down here and stay there. Now if we go back out into the crosscut again and go up a bit further, mine used the same size, 1-ton wagons pulled by a small electric loco, battery loco, charged up over each night in the charging bay. Each loco will pull about 10, so they take back about 10 ton every trip. And they pull for these wood chutes. Now you can see the support pillars now. There's the machine man left here, that they drilled over the top off. And then the timberman will come in and put the wood chutes in. Very primitive. In fact, if you look at, there's some photographs, I think it's one in the museum up on the top. There's a picture of a mine with donkeys years ago with a candle on his hat, and the wood chute that he's standing by and working on is identical. The only difference is he's pushing the wagon instead of a little loco pulling it. But the
It's
chute
Cousin
itself-
Jack, isn't it?
No, I don't they call everything Cousin Jack's down here, but it's a bit deceiving. But yeah, very primitive, just operated by what they call a sprag board, which is held off with just a piece of staff there. As soon as they let that out and lift that board, the ore will start to run. Problems arise when too big a rock jams the board open and the fine stuff runs alongside of it. And David Prowse, who's our chap that knows David Prowse, he'll tell you all about what happens then. He's down to shoveling it off the track and because he's buried the wagon in or whatever. But they're very primitive, but they seem to work. Travis seems to make the best of them. But you can see each support pillar now, between each wood chute, so there's a green one right there. And you can see the load quite common there as well, quite different here. Stope below. That's what the stopers mining operations are carrying on, and would be. Where the stope should be progressing in this way, the way we've walked in. And each month he'll have to come down and create his next support pillar. He'll do it with 6 foot rounds. The first one is easy because you can drill off the floor. When that's been knocked out, he'll have to put platforms in then to get up for his second round up, another 6 foot round. And then the same after he's blasted that, another timber platform to get up and drill his third round up, which will take him up to that plate up there where the roof is. So the platforms, personally I wouldn't put buggy on some of them, but they used to stay in, I must admit, primitive, but they had to build them as quick as they could because they had time on each round. They had to get that round each day, otherwise no wages. And as soon as he got his 3 rounds up then, he could turn his machine on its flat and start to drill 1 round that way, and 1 that way, to connect up over the tops of these pillars, to leave this solid pillar here to support everything above it. And then as soon as he's connected through to the next rise there, where you see where the ladder goes up to the next one, as soon as he's connected, the wood chute can be put in here, and then he can start to bring those benches back over this way, gradually work the stove that way. Uses different machine to the developers. He uses what we call a peg leg machine. Made by the same company, Holman's, but instead of the leg being hinged, leg rigid on the drilling head. The same drilling head, but the leg is rigid to the body. You see there's the hydraulic leg on it, which, because he drills nearly almost into the roof, it's easier for him to work with a rigid machine than one that's permanently bending in the middle. That's just a retainer to stop the drills falling down. They're quite heavy, so when they come to move them at the end of the shift, like this is a cumbersome old job. First thing in the morning as well, they have to be moved again. Water, because all the machines work on a water tube that shoots water up through the centre of the drill, right to the drilling head to reduce the dust. Compressed air on there. And all his services, he'll run from the level, hoses trailing up the stove. They'll have to be moved every night as well, every morning, to keep themselves out of the way of the blast. That's a peg leg machine. Not many other mines use these. I think Geevor was one of the last mines that used them to any extent. In fact, I know a friend of mine's gone to Crofty, and when they saw one up, they didn't know what it was. But there's a proper, that's the original Ullman Stoper machine. Not used very much now. Go in here a little bit. The load is split, obviously, and taken 3 different routes. So they'll dry the However, when he drove the level, he'll drive on each of them, and the samplers and geologists will come in each day and take a sample from the load at the face each day to find out which tunnel or which stringer of this load is the one that's carrying the most value. So they know then which way the stope is going to go, because they have to make a decision on which level that stope is to carry on, because if it takes the wrong one, it's very difficult to double back and take another. So the geologist's job then was very important. He had to make sure he put the stopers on the right load that the developers should drift on. And you see, like, so the rest of the mine is fairly naturally ventilated. As soon as you've got holes through to other levels, the ventilation will drift through. There, obviously, a developer's head in, there's no through ventilation, and you see the condensation that starts to form and the old fog that gets in there. And as you walk in, you'll feel that like a blanket of heat, and it'll get hotter as you get in further. So, if that went in too far, they'd have to put vent bags in then for the developers to keep them a little bit cooler. Not so bad once they got their machines working, you know. What are we looking for? Do we want to get up there and dig that out?
No.
Hey, no, you climb up on my shoulders.
You didn't say no.
Now, quite often, of course, the machinemen, the drillers, they always had first crack at anything like that, because after a blast, they were first ones in the morning. So for those of you that want to buy minerals and samples, the best people to go and see were the old drillers. That's right, because they had the best of
We
it.
had the same in the old
Everybody,
clay pits.
that's right. But of course, everybody else had the leftovers. The mine captain usually, he was the next one there, and he would badger everybody for the minerals. But sometimes you come across quite a big vug that's a good size, that just appears in the side of the round, that you can poke your head in and you'll know, you know, the sort of stuff that you can find in them is lovely. Smashing. Unfortunately, not a lot of it is saved, because some of the machinemen had no interest in it at all. They wouldn't even bother to pick it up.
They wanted making money quickly as possible.
Their money was paid, their money was in breaking ground. They didn't bother with the minerals. But a few of them did, and some of them got some nice collections. So they're the ones you want to see if you're looking for a few samples. I'll give you some names later.
What's it worth?
That's right. Yeah. But of course, when you get so many tunnels branch off like this, and the farther you get in, they might branch again. There's miles and miles of tunneling, and it could be workings way inside. You're not restricted to how many stopes you can work. It could be 20 sets of stopers working all at the same time. You can work so many different loads, and because there's miles of track, you can go for miles. We've just come off the straight service tunnel crosscut, just coming a little way. But the farther in you go, and then the farther off to each side you go. Even sometimes they've gone in off a load like this, and then they've driven another crosscut to pick up another load. So you can be in a long, long way to, you know, to find machinemen working in there. And it seems strange sometimes to think that men are so far in underground. Like, it does go for miles. That's off. Obviously there must have been a little bit of a fault down there somewhere, and that left-hand wall has started to slip away. But this is what happens when the stopers have finished and they've decided that there are no more values inside or above or below or whatever. They'll take out the support pillars. So they'll go to the inside workings of the stope, and they'll drill into those small support pillars in the roof, and they'll drill into the floor, because that's all still load bearing, and then they'll blast that out so that they, in fact, they take away the level then. So once they've done that, you can no longer get back into that level. That level is taken away. And they'll take that gunnis out then. So this will be stripped now right from up maybe 14, 13 level to right down below, down to perhaps even 16 or 17 level. They've taken the pillars out. So there's no more workings in past. This used to be a level. You used to be able to walk in, the track used to go in. But once they take those support pillars out, that's it. They've taken the last of that seam of tin out, and that's the end of it then. Once they've done that, that's curtains. But like you say, the wall doesn't always stay there. Now and then you'll get those big slabs there peel off the wall. That's what made working in the open gunnises a little bit hazardous years ago, because they used to be dug by hand rather than laterally by winches. And the men that worked in the open gunnises, it's stood the risk of something like that falling in on them. Well, that's the Grizzly. Now before Ken Gilbert came here, I'm trying to think what year he came here now. I can't remember. All the wagons used to go to the surface as they were. They used to load the wagons in the cage one by one and take them up to the shaft, up to the surface, and they were dumped one by one. Then when Gilbert came here, he decided that they would put in ore passes and put skips on instead of the cage and load the ore that way. The only thing is that the skips where they load, the loading boxes are quite small and the rocks have to be small enough to go through them. So everything has to be graded through this Grizzly. So it's got to be small enough to go through these bars. And if it's not already, it has to be made small enough. Now some of them, the Grizzlies, you can blast on quite frequently. Others are poorly ventilated and the smoke takes too long to clear. But most of these rocks will have to be broken by a long-ended sledgehammer. So whenever you left Geevor to go and work for a building company that paid a little bit higher wages, and then found that you had to come back again after 12 months, you could bet your last bottom dollar that your first week's work was swinging a sledgehammer on one of the Grizzlies. This was a little punishment quarter. If anybody was a naughty boy, they were sent on the Grizzlies for a bit of while. Yeah, just to teach them a lesson. So it was more or less every rock will be tried with a sledgehammer first before they resort to using powder on it. Especially with some of them are quite close to electrical equipment, so they can't blast at all. That was a miserable job, but that replaced the slow, methodical business of having to take one wagon at a time up in the cage. At least they could dump all their stuff here and then they could hoist it night shift at least 2 or 3 tons at a time. That's the locos that they use for the wagons and the charging bay. Charged up every night after use. Just a simple box of batteries and a little electric motor. 2 different sizes. There's a little B outfit, smaller one there, and the Claytons. The Clayton will pull 10 tons, the smaller bed will pull 7 tons. Usually link 2 motors together because some of the track, all the levels gradually rise as you go in on, so the water will come back to the station. Well, some of the developers tend to rise a little bit too much. And if you come back with 10 or 15 ton in wagons, and one of these smaller things, you couldn't stop at the other end. So sometimes they had to double them up, even sometimes they had to take 3 of them. So they could stop when they got back to the other Grizzly. But that's all they were, just little electric locos charged up each night. Rather than having to use diesels, which would create an awful lot of diesels. Not quite as helpful. Simple locos.
It's busy down here today with all these people.
Yeah.
Is it just one part, 2 parties, or?
Well, there's 3 parties
3
now.
parties, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now this is a little bit the Queen opened back in 1980 when things were doing a little bit better than they are at the moment. They decided when they were going to go and get the reserves from Levant, rather than sink the shaft, Victory shaft, any deeper, and have to drive all the tunnels out from the bottom of the Victory shaft, they decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and go straight towards the bottom of Levant on a decline. So Tyson's, a German mining contracting firm, came here and started to develop this solid decline. And that's where it started to fill up now. Down the bottom there is, you're going underneath the lower levels of Levant, and that's where we broke into Levant. That's where the salt water comes from. Some of the levels down there have been developed, we broke into the van in a lot of places, an awful lot of drives, gone into the old workings, tiny little workings, and we wouldn't be able to get through them not comfortably. They're tiny little things, and usually shaped a little bit like a coffin on its end. So they took the maximum amount of load and minimum of granite and height. Terrible little levels, awful job they did there. But that was driven with Tyson's, and they started off with handheld machines, just like the machines we saw in the development heading. 5 or 6 at a face, 3 ships, and their rate of advance was good. They went down the Fair Old Lake. It was mucked out on a simple principle of a like a scoop, a drag into a ramp and into a wagon and dumped into the ore pass, which is just up there behind those couple of girders there. And that leads down into behind 15 Grizzly and all into the same bins then and up Victory Shaft. It used to come up when we started to work the mine then and Stope down below. It came up on a conveyor system, but that ran down alongside the track here, right down to the bottom. But of course that's since been taken out and sold off to try and raise funds. There was another winder down just below 19 station, the same or very similar to that winder up there, and that would have then serviced us from about 20 level down to 25 level, which was where they were heading, but it stopped. Geevor took over the driving of the decline when Tyson's got down to about 19 with a track heading machine, very expensive track header, which had its own Panzer system and conveyor system on it and its own system of mucking. Very expensive, but unfortunately it didn't get far with it and the mine ran into when the Tin Council collapsed and the mine ran into difficulty. That's still down there, unfortunately now that's underwater, so that'll be written off.
That was brand new.
That was bought. Geevor bought that brand new. It was installed. Awful job, because everything that comes down has to come down in that cage or slung underneath it. So you're limited to what size of equipment you can bring down. And in actual fact, that had to be cut up to be brought down here and welded back up again when it got underground. So not only did you have the expense of buying it, but the cost of getting it down there was colossal. And it, like I say, it didn't work for very long, and they had to abandon it because of the collapse of the Tin Council.
The blackest part down in the middle of that tunnel then is water, isn't it?
I don't know whether you can see the water. I don't know whether you can. I can see a light down there. Somebody on 19 pump station. So 19 is still clear at the moment. They're probably down now just metering the level of the water as it comes up. Like you can just see a lamp. Can you see the light?
Yeah.
So what's the rate? Is that set horizon?
We don't really know yet. That's why they're down there each day, sort of trying to work out how long it'll take to come up to sort of 15 level. It might be 3 months, might be 6 months, it might even be longer.
Yeah. The chain was only a few weeks.
That's right. They had a terrible water problem at Wheel Jane. Like there was so much water coming in at Wheel Jane. Geevor's not quite as bad as that, but it will come up. But because I suppose Geevor pumped out so much of the old Levant workings, there's an awful lot down there left to fill up. So it'll take a while. And with some of the Levant workings they broke into were fascinating. Some of the bits or pieces are up in the museum, but fascinating little levels. And their little crosscuts, because they were so expensive in those days for a mining company like Levant to drive a crosscut, it was so small that the lads here that went in to have a little nosy in and managed to walk in or crawl into them, but they couldn't turn around to get out. So they found they had to back all the way out again, and they'd gone quite a way as well. They were so tiny. And they, of course, they'll have been done drilled by hand. That's somebody holding the drill, turning it while somebody strikes. Or sometimes you might, if they're at bigger areas like the Stopes, they'll have one man turning and 2 men striking. And I know Mr. Rowe always used to tell me in Nancledra that he used to turn for 2 old strikers in Levant, and they always carried a bucket of water. And I said, what was that for? To keep the dust down? No, he said, if ever they missed and hit your hand, you put your hand in the bucket. Because he said, if you let go, he said, the next striker would hit you again. So he said, you couldn't afford to let go for very long. So I don't know any nice in those days. And little 2-foot rounds there, as opposed to the rounds we see up in Geevor now, 10 foots and 8 foots. They'd go around, just drill little 2-foot rounds. And you see the drill holes, or you would have been able to see the drill holes down there now, little short rounds. And fired with black powder as opposed to our tunnel gelatine that we used to use. They also used to use some ampho in latter years, but that was never quite as successful. The ICI tunnel gelatine was most commonly used.
Something clues long that it's working mine.
Oh no! I mean, we were working here right up until how long ago? When we had to shut the machines down, stop the drilling anyway, and then we've stayed on. We trammed out some of the ore that was already broken. We were tramming out up through this conveyor up until maybe four weeks ago, perhaps 3-4 weeks ago. We were still using this part of the mine and we were still bringing ore up. Then we went to tram out some of the ore that's already broken way up past where we walked earlier. So we were, even though we'd stopped drilling, we were still bringing out what had already been broken. But then came the decision they couldn't afford to do it anymore, so they've cut the cost completely now and turned the pumps off and laid the men off. So at the moment,
No chance of it being made payable again?
well, I mean, a lot of the men say yes. But this present company at the moment is in dire straits, not to put too fine a point on it. So I don't think they're in any position to even invest men's wages to try and make it pay. I don't think they'd be able to pay their wages at the end of the week.
So the longer they leave it, the more work it's going to be to get it back.
Well, that's right. For whoever, I mean, I think somebody probably will take over. I'm rather hoping a private company now can buy it as a private concern, because at the moment it's Geevor PLC. But if they can take it over as a private mine, I think it stands a good chance. If somebody's got enough money to be able to keep it going until the price just picks up a little bit. It won't take a lot more. It's about hovering around 3,500 at the moment. If it was just go up as far as 4, it would be payable. When it reopened after the initial closure, it reopened at about 3,300. So I mean, it worked and it paid at that then. I know that 2 years ago. We'd have to stand this side of the rope a minute, maybe, because that cage down the bottom is about to will rot just as quick with ventilation there as what they will soaked in the water. And some of the water, like Levant's own water that it produces, is full of copper. And there's timbers in Levant that have been there for hundreds of years, and you wouldn't cut them with a saw. They're too hard. They're so hard you wouldn't bury a hatchet in them. It's not like pieces of steel. So to a certain extent, some of it will go down on the water, but there's only that weights. You'll see the hammers and their little, perhaps little toolboxes where they left them. You know, like I said, the sides have collapsed, but then the nails have rusted away. Yeah. All right, Robin. Your feet wet, Robin?
Not quite.
Not quite?
Not quite. Legs, yes.
Oh. So, yeah, it's strange to see the old workings. And, some of the old shaft, the Levant skip shaft was still in use, like I say, up until about 6 years ago. I had a little 4-man cage, provided you left the doors open. But it wasn't vertical. It was like a dog's back leg, because it followed the load down. Unlike Victory shaft, which was sunk on clean granite vertically, they sunk their shafts on load rather than waste money and sink it on granite. They all sank them on load. So the shaft ended up the same shape as the load. And I think there were about 26 rollers in the shaft to keep the wire rope from cutting into the wood sets. Because of course as the cage would go on, the rope would touch the sets. So that's not that long ago been shut down. I think Eric was servicing that shaft up till about 5 years ago. And we used to go up there now and then. Tiny little thing. Unfortunately that's closed. So there we are. So we got a rough idea. Everybody got a rough idea? You'll be able to tell David Prowse you've seen where he used to work. No? Right. Better go.
Oh, I don't know what
Cameraman. Well, we'll make room.
You're joking. More than merry.
Two youngsters being robbed.
Have my hand on you.
Yeah, don't let go.
Got Robin's nose on camera anyway.
The next problem is we have to try and... We can. That's lovely. Stacks room for another half a dozen. So how's the water coming up, Robin?
20.
Oh, it's so...
Put in 20.
It's in 20, is it?
They do manage the lunch boxes as well.
Ah, bit of a problem.
You've got to ring him up and tell him he's not a real winder.
Oh, that's right, I did too.
Can you imagine the actual water level rising like so many inches a day down on 20 now? I mean,
I wish it was inches.
it's what, like feet?
Yeah. Oh hell, I'm trying to think of a figure to give you. It depends. If there's a thing branching off the side to absorb it, it's not very much. For instance, it hasn't moved very much since Monday when I brought the family down to today. But that's because it's going into a level.
Yeah.
Before that, it was, oh Jesus, 50 feet in a day, just in the...
It's up a shaft or a rise.
Well, you've seen the size of the shaft. It's nominally 15 wide and 10 high. So it zooms up there.
Here's a pot. Here's mine in there. I had to walk up the sisters, I tell you.
Oh, it's broken.
Running out of steam,
as well.
It's pedalling slower now.
Daylight.
Yeah.
Ooh.
See you later, John.
Yeah, okay, Robin. Told you it was warmer down there. Wow, why are we down there?
I nearly made a ruby mark. That's what I had a lot. Oh, he's nearly said I've got a flashlight.
Yeah, that's off the bullet winder that would have taken, like I said, would have taken the other the car down to 25 level. We're stripping out that one. Off the incline winder there for the time being, I suppose, until they think it's absolutely necessary they take that one out as well. But the bottom winder now is partially out, to be out by the end of the week anyway. So I suppose it's better up here in mothballs than down there underwater. At least it's always there then to go back in should they need it, provided they don't sell it anymore. Just roving, you have to just...
Is there anybody like to take a photo of this, please?
Oh, well. Difficulty. Ah. I thought there was somebody back there looking for little trinkets to pick up.